In 1927, physicists at the Fifth Solvay Conference decided that particles were not real before observation. It was Niels Bohr that led the physicists of the conference towards the conclusion, based on Max Born's probability mathematics, proving to dictate the particles of the quantum world. Albert Einstein vehemently opposed the idea that particles were not real when we do not look. In 1935, he wrote a paper that attempted to establish particles as real within the unseen. In his paper, Einstein attempted to utilize the deterministic correlation between a pair of entangled particles as an indicator of a realistic element that pertains to a particle before it is observed. He argued that if the realistic element is a predictable quantum behavior, the utilization of a real particle is a necessity. Niels Bohr argued in the same journal this same year and with the same title that Einstein failed to deliver mathematics beyond the probability mathematics introduced by Max Born. Without an argument that included the conception of both realism and a way to consider a particle's time evolution through spacetime in a certain manner, physicists went on considering the unseen as an arbitrary abyss. Today, we can know that Einstein was correct when he sought to establish realism. However, the correct method is to utilize the predictable wavelength increase arising when observing a pair of entangled particles in consecutive order. The first step to establish realism is to entangle two particles, then to separate them, one with Alice and the other with Bob. Next, Alice observes and records the wavelength of her particle. Now, in order to observe the predictable quantum phenomena, Alice and Bob must wait. After a sufficient interval, Bob views his particle's wavelength and observes an increase in wavelength compared to what Alice observed. Bob's particle should be the same wavelength as Alice's particle. However, Alice can physically observe that Bob's wavelength is greater than her own. In order to mathematically represent the predictable increase in wavelength, one must consider that a particle at E1 is a real particle before it arrives at observation, or E2. This is because, in order to represent wavelength increase, one must consider that the proximity, represented by red lines, increases between Alice and Bob. In order to say that Bob's particle is closer to Alice's before observation than after, requires the mathematical conception of a real particle. Here, we have inadvertently solved a problem preventing the unification of quantum mechanics with general relativity. Before realism, how could curved space force anything on a particle? Particles did not exist before observation. Now, the space-time curvature that forces system expansion can be said to force particles to evolve in time. If you look, clock A travels at a speed through both space and time. The combination of the speed is the speed of light. Clock B travels more through space and less through time, but still travels at the speed of light. If space-time curvature forces a particle to travel less through space and more through time, one must say that gravitational curvature forces time conduction. Now, we can see that realism is the key to uniting quantum mechanics with general relativity. Now, unlike with Einstein's attempt to establish realism, one can state that space-time curvature is what places particles into position in a certain manner. When we know that realism applies to our universe, we have a theory of everything. From the theory of everything, we know that curved space should place particles. However, in 2000, the CIA released documents outlining the results of an experiment showcasing the capability of an individual to manipulate the placement of particles as they arise upon observation. The experiment, investigating the degree in which selected personnel can manipulate quantum scale phenomena by mental means alone, found that selected personnel were capable of forcing particles to deviate from probabilistic behavior. Here, we can utilize the theory of everything. When curvature should produce probabilistic particle placements, and instead, we see the production of orderly quantum acts, we can utilize the conception of realism to showcase that it is of an individual's choice to enact a force that alters the trajectory of a particle that should only be manipulated by gravitational curvature. With realism, we now have a fifth force of nature, acting to displace the typical behavior that should arise from simply the gravitational force. What are the capabilities of this fifth force of nature? That question is exactly what my book, The Fifth Force of Nature, is about. In this book, I go over a range of experiments conducted by scientists investigating the correlation between the outcome of experiment and the choices that selected personnel made in the lab. In this book, you will learn for yourself the proven methods that allowed individuals to manipulate how events took place and how processes unfolded. Details such as distance, knowledge of environment, and the capabilities for individuals in our future to manipulate our present state are gone over in this book. Einstein called the ability for an individual to manipulate the outcome of experiments involving entangled particles spooky action at a distance. I've already shown you how the CIA helped to establish spooky action at a distance as a force. Now, find out exactly how Einstein's spooky action at a distance works. Click the link below to buy the book. There is both a digital and paperback version of the book. There have been best-selling books on the topic of non-physical interventions as The Secret, but now there is a capability to take in and mentally grasp the scientific parameters that dictate such a phenomenon. You can buy my book in either a paperback or digital form. The paperback version is $19.99 and the ebook version is $9.99. I've written my Twitter or X information and my YouTube channel information in either copy, so if you simply buy a copy of the book, you'll be all set up to receive a steady stream of content relevant to physics. My YouTube channel will cover many more groundbreaking discoveries and reinterpretations of ideas that are fundamental to modern physics. In the future, I will be posting videos on the following topics. Is gravitation a function of heat flow? Can the theory of everything prove that it is? Is there truly a dark energy? Can we define dark energy by its physical act now that we have a theory of everything? Were physicists mistaken when they attributed the expansion act to energy present within the universe? What does the theory of everything tell us of the end of time? When energy exists as both a wave and a particle, and space-time expansion will eventually completely flatten a particle's wave, how can particles exist in the end stage of the universe without energy? Without particles, there isn't the capability to represent that history ever occurred. See how universal expansion might eventually mean a universal reset and another Big Bang. Are we alone in the universe? Can the theory of everything provide us a method to find out? Plus, more general topics such as the end of the vacuum catastrophe, the role of the standard model with realism, the meaning of quantum tunneling with realism, plus how to interpret the outcomes of the dual slit experiment in a universe where particles are real. I will also be posting a video on how the 2022 Nobel Prize recipients unwittingly defined spooky action at a distance as a function of superdeterminism. However, this story is included in my book. Thank you for watching. I look forward to sharing my latest content with you on YouTube and Twitter. I'm on Twitter or X at ReallyIsRealism. Subscribe to my YouTube channel at ReallyIsRealism. Also, don't forget to click the link below to acquire a copy of the book for yourself. Realism really does apply to our universe. Don't wait to see how this fact applies to you as I submit my research manuscript to peer-reviewed journals. This process takes time. Modern physics won't be the same, and you won't be the same. You will be better after you've taken the facts that the universe has to offer you.